joining us today. My name is Lynn. I am a sales rep here at WarmlyYours, and today I am joined by Scott.
Hi, everybody.
And Scott is one of our technical support team members here. He is an amazing source of information for us. So today he's going to be talking with us about installing pro exclusive ruler cable heating underneath tile or luxury vinyl tile. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If we don't see them right away, we'll definitely get to them by the end of the presentation. You can put them in the ask a question feature or in the chat feature. And like I said, we'll definitely try to get to those. I know we also had a few questions sent in ahead of time that we'll also be addressing throughout the presentation as well. So, like I said, today we're going to be going over our TempZone Ruler Cable. Specifically, we're going to go over some of the benefits of the ruler cable, and then we're going to talk about how it works really well when heating underneath tile flooring or heating underneath luxury vinyl tile flooring. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the installation steps for the actual installation, I guess I should say, of the heating element. So the ruler cable is our newest product here at WarmlyYours, and it's a really, really exciting one for us because it is a pro exclusive, meaning that right now it is only available to our trade pro customers. And this is a great product because it's going to make installation much easier and much simpler, and it's going to take a lot of the guesswork out of it. So Scott, can you kind of tell us what makes this cable so great for our trade pros?
Well, it's highly visible. You can see the markings and the footage markings on the cable very, very well. It's black print on a yellow cable, so it looks just like one of those old-fashioned tape measures. And the cable's marked every half inch, every inch, and then at the 1 foot mark. And then as you go up, it goes 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. So it's telling you how many feet of cable you have used up to that point. And we're going to learn why that's so important a little bit later. But you can use it with all kinds of products. You can use it with LVT, tile, stone, marble, anything that you can heat with cable, you can use this cable for.
Yes, absolutely. And like you had mentioned, it does feature ruler marks. And this is really the first electric radiant heating cable on the market to have these high visibility hash marks. So they're marked every half inch, and every foot. And this, coupled with the smart plan that we'll provide to you, and which we'll be going over in just a moment here, ensures that you're using the proper amount of cable to make that installation go much quicker and smoother. So, Scott, can you kind of tell us about some of the improved durability and flexibility of this product?
Well, first of all, Richard had sent us a question. So I might as well get Richard's question, because if you ever send us a
Definitely.
question, we want to make sure that we answer it for you. And he asked, is this wire compatible with other brands of heat underlayment? And the answer to that is yes. And my question to Richard would be, why don't you get the Prodeso that we offer, because it fits in there perfectly. We know that. In the old days, with a twin conductor wire, the shorter the wire was, the thicker the diameter was, and the longer it was, the thinner the diameter of the wire was. To make this fit into, make every length of cable fit into this exactly, the outer cover is made of PVC, and that PVC thickness is changed, and the thickness as it goes over the wire is changed per wire size underneath. And by adding more PVC to the thinner wires and less PVC to the thicker wires, we can make all the wires exactly the same width or diameter. So that's what makes them fit inside there. So on the outer part is the PVC. It's very durable and pretty thick in some cases, and that's good. And inside the product is where you have the ETFE fluoropolymer. That's the actual insulation that's over the heating wire itself, and that's very, very strong. That's very resilient to not getting cut. It's a very strong. In the old days, I believe they called it Teflon. So it was had a very tough surface, and the elements are constructed in such a way inside of that it's very easy to bend the cable and go around curves and corners, as you see on this picture. That's what lets you do these 90-degree turns, and you don't have to force it, because a lot of the competitors, when you put that wire in, you take it out, it'll be bent like that. This, it doesn't do that. It's the correct width, so it sticks. And then if you have to take it out and redo it, you're not fighting that bend that you've created, or that 90-degree turn bend. It'll just come loose and you can put it somewhere else. So that's why it's easier to install in the serpentine manner, is because it's less prone to get stuck in a certain position.
Very cool. That's very good information to have. And like I said, this is exclusive to our trade pros. So right now it's only available to new and existing professional WarmlyYours customers. And this is for a really good reason. It gives you a great competitive edge over other installers. It's going to make that installation, like I said, much simpler. It's going to give you a lot less room for error, since it's going to be a little bit more on the nose when you're actually doing the installation. Takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, and it's going to make that install much quicker. And like Scott had said, this can be paired with Prodeso uncoupling membrane, that's our brand, or other popular uncoupling membranes if you would like.
Yeah, and if you ever have to go, that's the benefit. You don't have to worry about bending it and keeping that shape. So if you have to, oh, I need to redo this cut over, or I need to redo this turn over here, because you can never ever cut the heating cable. You never ever do that. But if you have to reposition it, you're not fighting with that cable all the time. So it's going to make it much faster and easier to install.
Richard just asked, what is a rough estimate for material and labor of a 10 by 12 bathroom? So that will vary. That answer will vary quite a bit depending on a lot of different factors, including specifically what materials you'll need. If you're looking at doing a ruler cable with Prodeso, obviously there's going to be a lot more materials needed than if you were doing just like a cut and turn mat. Obviously, also depends on how much of the area. Yeah, you said 10 by 12, kind of for the general square footage. However, if you are, if there's cabinets and things like that, toilets, tubs, anything you want to be heating around and not underneath, that'll also affect how much material is needed. So it's hard to say. I think generally we try to say between $10 and $15 a square foot, roughly, for TempZone products. So that's kind of what I would use to guesstimate right now, and then definitely reach out to us, or we can reach out to you once this is over and we can get you a much more accurate quote.
And one thing to keep in mind with this cable product, some of our competitors say if you want to use this cable, you need to use our underlayment to put the cable in. We don't have that requirement. Not every job needs to have Prodeso
Correct.
or a competitor's underlayment. It's not needed in a lot of cases. So why spend the extra money on that underlayment when you don't need it? So this product actually comes with grip strips, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. And that's what allows you to eliminate the cost of that membrane, that some companies say, oh, you need to use this to get our cable. You need to put it in this membrane. Some floors don't require that. So don't buy a membrane that you don't need. So that's what's so great about this, is you can save money by not having to buy the membrane that some people make you buy just to put their cable in. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a nice solid floor, you don't need to worry about it. Save your money. Don't get the underlayment if you don't need it.
Absolutely. So looking at heating underneath tile flooring, obviously tile flooring is probably the most popular type of flooring that people will be heating underneath, mainly because A, it's just a very naturally cold material and it easily warms up when you add radiant heating to it. And it's also often used in spaces that have wet, like a wet room, a wet location, or something like that. And not only are they great to help warm that space and help dry the floor, but they can also be, generally speaking, our TempZone products can be installed in wet locations as well. Also, tile doesn't have a high temperature limit like a lot of other flooring types do, so you can deliver a lot more heat into the space.
And doubling down on that one, Kenneth asked a question about, we install sunrooms and are doing more of this type of flooring. So he's asked all the time about floor heat. Well, those areas, those rooms, sunrooms tend to be poorly insulated, or they're three seasons rooms, which means they're full of glass, full of windows. When that's the case, you want a project or a product that will get more heat into that space. So tile doesn't have a temperature limit. It doesn't say you can only heat this up to 82 or you can only heat this up to 84. That's not the case with tile. You can heat it pretty much as warm as you want to get it. And by doing that, tile is going to deliver more heat into that space than a product like LVT or a product like laminate or carpet or something like that, because all of those flooring types have a limit that you can't go over. So we want to heat the room, but you can never get the floor over 82 degrees. Would you rather have that room, or would you rather have the room that says, here's tile, and you can set it for 90 or 95 if you want to? Obviously, that floor that you can set to a higher temperature is going to deliver more heat into that space. So that is a roundabout way of answering your question, Kenneth, or maybe not, I don't know, but you can do sunrooms, three-season rooms, and the best flooring to choose is going to be the flooring that allows you to get more heat into the space, and that's tile. So a lot of people go, well, it feels so cold, but it warms up pretty fast. And then it
Oh,
feels very
definitely.
warm, and you can get it really, really warm. So that's one of the things that we talk about when it comes to those type of spaces. If you look in this drawing or in this picture right here, excuse me, you can see there's a couple areas we won't heat here. We're not going to heat under a tub. You can't heat under a tub, so we're not going to heat under there. So that tub is sitting flat on the floor. Can't heat under that tub. On the left, you can see that there's a vanity there, a cabinet. Um, Usually in front of cabinets or vanities, there's a toe space or a toe kick. Well, what you want to do with the vanities, you can't heat under the vanity where the boxed bottom sits on the floor. You can't heat under that. That's against code. But you definitely want to get under that toe kick because that's where people's toes are when they're looking at themselves in the mirror. Usually I try to stay as far away from a mirror because the further I am away, the better I look. But there are some people that want to adjust whatever it is, and they will get their feet up under there, and you don't want cold toes. You want to make sure that the toes and the toe kick are warm. So you're not going to heat under the cabinet, but you're going to heat in the toe kick area. You want to heat, you can heat around a tub, but you don't heat under a tub. And also, when you try to go around the tub, you want to watch out for that back corner because that back corner over there has plumbing in it. And plumbers tend to drill holes through tile to get the plumbing into that space. Well, you don't want to be drilling holes into the floor where there's electric floor heat. So we stay away from that type of stuff. So if you get a plan back from us and we are not showing heat under there, those are the reasons. First of all, because of code considerations, you can't heat under permanent fixtures. And we know after talking to people on the phone that there's certain areas that you want to stay away from. And that's drains and any plumbing where you're going to have drills going through. Also staying 4 inches away from the wax ring of a toilet, because if you get too close to
Yes,
that, you're going to know in a few days that you've melted the wax ring.
definitely. Richard asked, can this product be used in an outdoor living space with a full roof but open on the sides? This product specifically, no, we do offer an outdoor heating product that's designed to melt snow and ice. So if you're interested in that, again, definitely reach out or visit our website and look at our snow melting systems, and that's going to give you some information on that type of heating.
It all has to do with inside versus outside. And there's a National Electric Code has different rules for inside than it does for outside. And our inside product is not UL listed for use outdoors. And our outdoor system is not UL listed for use indoors. So you have to tell us indoors or outdoors, and then we will get you the correct product for each one of those applications. But that's a great question.
Absolutely. So looking at some of the compatible systems with a tile floor, Scott, you had kind of talked earlier about how tile is really going to let you kind of crank that heat as much as you would like. And that means that you can put down pretty much any kind of our TempZone product. It's just going to really come down to what you're hoping to get out of the system and what the installer prefers. So TempZone with tile requires that everything be fully embedded. You want to make sure that either thin set or self-leveling cement is completely covering the heating system at all times. Um, So we do have flex rolls that are shown here, the green roll that can be cut and turned. We have cable. We also have our ruler cable, which obviously we are discussing more in depth today. And then we also offer easy mats and custom mats. So there's lots of different solutions. And these are all also, like I had said, wet location listed and waterproof. And they're really going to give enough warmth to take that chill out of the tile. So Scott, like you had said, often people think of tile flooring as being especially cold, but when you can crank the heat up underneath it, it's going to take that chill right out of the floor.
Yep, and this can go in showers, but it can't go on shower walls. Heating shower walls is not allowed by the National Electric Code. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about heating a bathroom is, yeah, get some heat in that shower floor. And we get people asking all the time, can I put it in the walls? And the answer to that is the National Electric Code says no to that.
Absolutely. So this is a really great example of the smart plan we had talked about a little bit earlier. And this is actually showing how that ruler cable will be laid out in that Prodesto uncoupling membrane. So Scott, as someone who has actually been on the job site and worked with these in hand and kind of used it as your game plan, can you kind of walk us through what we're looking at here specifically with the smart plan?
Well, at the bottom in the black print, I always like to go there because I'm going to give this to the electrician along with the electrical plan page that we supply because it's going to tell the electrician that they need a 115 amp 240 volt circuit and a circuit breaker for that. It's going to tell the electrician what the total amps are, what the total wattage is. All that information is there at the bottom. And then to the right there at the bottom, you'll see the actual product that's being used in this installation. It's a 240 volt 5 by 15 or 515 foot cable. 240 volt is, and here's one we get a question all the time, and this question has been around forever. The assumption has been around forever that 240 volt is more efficient than 120. It is not. The only time 240 is more efficient than 120 is in some electric motors. That's it. Otherwise, you get the same amount of heat from 240 as you do from 110 or 120, and it heats at the same speed. It delivers the same number of watts into the area. 240 allows you to, our thermostats can only handle 15 amps. That's as much as it'll switch. And the product here is 7.9 amps. So this can be done on one control with 240. If this were done in 120, it would be almost 16 amps. That's why it has to be 240 because 16 amps is more than a 15 amp thermostat will handle. So that's why this particular job is in 240. That's the only reason. So the benefit of 120 is if you can do it less than 120 square feet, is that you only take up one space in the breaker box. 240 takes two spaces. And it needs to be a non-GFI circuit breaker because if you put a circuit breaker that has GFI on the same circuit as a thermostat with GFI, you can have nuisance tripping. And you don't want that because they're fighting each other all the time. So what this drawing is good for the electrician to plan. And that's where you see the T in a circle. That T in the circle at the bottom is where the thermostat is. That means that's where the electrician has to get the power to. The power has to go to that spot because that's where the product starts. Because you can see the number 1 in a circle there with a little triangle. That means this is the starting point of the cable. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And you can see it works its way to the right. And then it fills this space over here. Well, this space over here is a closet. And the way I know it's a closet is because there's a warning on the drawing that says heating the closet is not compliant with the National Electric Code in the United States. So this is another thing. We like to tell you this so it's never a surprise. If you're thinking about heating a closet, you're more than welcome to try it, but you should get it cleared with your local authority having jurisdiction, which means your local code inspector. If they say, yeah, sure, go ahead, heat that area, you're more than welcome to, then go ahead. But the National Electric Code says you can't. Also in Canada, it lets you, that code in Canada lets you put heat in a closet as long as you have a thermostat in there. So you have to be able to turn it on or off and control the heat in the closet in addition to the rest of the room. So that's the case where this area would be split into two. One thermostat for the closet and one thermostat for the rest of the room. So actually two cables here. So I like to cover all that stuff because it's right there. That's why I love this plan, because it's just things that you normally wouldn't think about. We try to think about them for you, so you don't get the guy or the inspector coming in and going, well, you have to take that out, or you can't ever turn this on because it doesn't comply with code. Why didn't anybody tell me? Well, that's what we're here for. We like to make sure that you don't have any problems when you're installing it. So the cable's running into that area to the right. That's a closet. And you can see that there is a circle there in the lower right corner on the right side that has 154 in a circle in a yellow marker. That means that's the number of feet shown on your cable should match up to that spot. So that would be spot number one. Then you work your way over to the left side where it leaves the closet, and along the left side of the left side of the drawing on the outside is 224. That should be where you're reaching the 224 mark on your cable. If you're not, there's one thing that you probably didn't notice, and that is the little green numbers that are in the plan. Right there on the left side, if you can show that, Lynn, where I'm
I
one
say, can you see
foot.
my mouse?
Yes, I
Oh,
can.
okay. I could have been doing this the whole time then. I apologize. Where am I showing?
1 foot, 11 and a half inches on the left side, along the left side, right up there. That is telling you the strips that you're using to string the cable back and forth in. That is one
This is
foot,
Prodeso.
11 and a half inches from the wall. So all these little green measurements, if you go up to the next one there, Lynn, above that at 3 1/4, that's 3 1/4 inches from the wall is where that strip is. So
Keep in
all
mind,
these,
Scott, this drawing has Prodeso, so this will actually just be where it's run and stops before the wall, because the Prodeso will
right.
go to the wall.
Right, not strips, but that's where the cable's running. Correct. Sorry about that.
No, I
Um,
think we have a strips drawing too, so I think that's why you were confusing them.
yeah. So if you look at the toilet there, it says upper right-hand corner, 1 foot, 10 inches, 10 3/4 inches. That's where the cable is going to be going through the Prodeso there. So that's what those green measurements are. And it's the same type of measurement for your strips also. So if you look there along the right side, it says 344 feet and 6 inches. Then to the left, it's 409. You should be matching up pretty closely to these because this is a pretty tight design. There's not a lot of extra space in this. So the main takeaway is if you get to that lower right measurement, 154 feet, and you're at 200 on your cable and you're just reaching there, that means you've got the wire too close together. You've used too much cable. You're going to run out before you get to the end. But if you are showing this 154-foot mark and you've only used 100 feet, that means you've spaced the cable too far apart and you're going to have way too much at the end. And the thing is, you can never ever cut the heating wire. So that means you're going to have to pick it all back out of the membrane and do it all over again. That's why we're giving you these numbers. So you don't get all the way to the end and go, oh, I have too little or too much. You're using these numbers as guideposts along the way to go, oops, I'm a little short. Maybe I did the wrong turn, or I'm right on here, I'm right on there, I'm right on. So it's your traffic signal. Are you going correctly or not? So that in a long-winded blurb is what's going on with this drawing.
That was a great explanation. Thank you, Scott. So looking at the actual installation with the Prodeso membrane, so once you secure that to the subfloor, then you will put the cable in, kind of snap it into those nodules. And one of the great things about Prodeso is that it does offer crack isolation, some tile support, and it also is helps to waterproof an installation if you use the correct accessories that we have available. So Prodeso itself is going to improve installation speed, and then obviously adding the ruler cable to that is going to just make it go that much quicker. So Scott, I believe you know something about this picture. Can you kind of tell us what's going on here?
Well, how did you know about that? I took this picture and it was on the front of a tile magazine a few years ago.
I noticed your
Did I ever
handiwork. I
bring that
just, you have
up?
an eye for it.
Did I ever bring that up?
I think
Um,
maybe.
but anyway, this was a job that we did. We have a video of this installation actually on our website too, where we did the waterproof room. But what we're doing here is we're only putting enough thin set down to lay a tile or two. Then we get those set, then we put down some more thin set, then put a tile or two down. You never ever take this membrane, lay it out on the floor, put the cable in, and then cover it completely with thin set and come back the next day. You don't do that. You get the membrane in, you get the cable in, and then you put enough thin set to set a tile, enough thin set to set a tile, and you keep working your way across. Because that way, if it comes to lunchtime, you just put the last tile down, then you come back and you take off from where you left. Or if you have to leave and come back the next day. So that's really what you want to do. And when we first came out with this product years ago, we were running into people that were covering, because they've always just covered the cable, right? In the old days, you just lay the cable down and cover it all and then come back the next day. And that's a problem. You don't want to do that. So that's why you do it that way. And that's what's happening here in this picture.
Wonderful. So looking at heating underneath LVT or luxury vinyl tile, the LVT is, if you are at all in the flooring industry, kind of becoming a darling child in the flooring industry. It's really just become incredibly popular and for a really good reason. It's a very versatile flooring choice. It's very easy to install. It's generally very cost effective and can get you the look of more expensive materials without the associated cost, as well as often being very durable, very water resistant, often can last 20 to 25 years. So it really is a great product, and adding heat underneath it is going to really make that just a little bit of a nicer product, even a little bit more luxurious even than it already is. And one of the great things about the way that you'll be installing with LVT is that essentially what you're doing is creating a heated subfloor. So this way you're able to, over time, if you would like to change the LVT out, you can always do that, and you'll still have your nice heated system. So looking at the compatible systems again, since LVT, you'll want to be installing the actual flooring over a self-leveling concrete. You want to make sure that you're getting a heated system that can be embedded like our TempZone. So generally speaking, it's going to be often the same types of products that we showed you earlier, our TempZone mats that can be cut and turned, our TempZone cable and things like that. And because of that, the ruler cable is a really great way to heat underneath LVT. So this is the picture I think that you were thinking of, Scott, with the grip strips. And this, I think, is a really great drawing, again, showing another way of doing the installation. Can you kind of first talk a little bit about why you would probably rather use grip strips than Predesso when doing an LVT installation?
Well, it doesn't really matter, except that if you're doing LVT, you don't have to worry about tiles cracking. So
Right.
you don't really have to worry about, oh, I might have a hairline crack in this self-leveling. Well, you don't have to worry about a hairline crack damaging the tile or worrying about grout lines. There's no grout lines to worry about. It's simply you're just creating a heated subfloor. So because you don't have to worry about any cracking self-leveling or any cracking tile or any grout breaking up, you don't have to worry about the floor being really solid, or decoupled or uncoupled. So that uncoupling membrane, that's what that's for. You don't need it. So now you don't have to pay the 100, 200, 300, 400, depending however much you use, that extra cost, you can eliminate that cost. And now you can use the strips that come at no charge with the product, and you can lay those down and string the cable back and forth. Then if you take a look at this 8'8" marking there at the top in the center, that 8'8" mark is actually the length of the cable run. That's the length from one run to the other. So we suggest taking masking tape, real inexpensive stuff. It only has to work for a few minutes, so you don't need to spend a fortune on it. That tape is you're going to run it down this plan every 2 or 3 feet. So you'd probably have 2 runs of that masking tape to hold it down, because when you cover it with self-leveling is going to try floating to the top of the self-leveling. And if you do that, you're going to be in trouble. So you're going to have to pour self-leveling again on top of it to get that cable embedded. So keep the cable down. The best way to do that is with masking tape. Then if we work our way just to the right of that 8'8", you can see where the T is. That's where the thermostat's going to go. That's where your power has to be. If this changes, if you send us a plan and we show you the T in a circle at this spot and you go, you know what, really, that thermostat needs to go in the lower left corner or somewhere else, we need to redraw that for you. And we'll be glad to do that for you because it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So if your thermostat, that's what you have to do is when you're going out to do these jobs, you need to make sure that these dimensions, it always says it always says, please verify dimensions in the field prior to ordering before you even lay it out. Because if that 16-foot, 8 3/4 inch span is really 14 feet, you are going to have too much cable. It will not fit. You can't cut the cable. So you're at a dead end. And we know that when you're building a new house, that tub may start out as a 3x5 tub and turn into a 5x5 tub. And as soon as you start taking square footage available on the floor away, you start reducing the square footage the cable can cover, you're going to have too much cable when it comes to that. So you need to make sure that these dimensions match. Very, very important that you do that ahead of time because a lot of these dimensions are pretty tight. You can see there's not a lot of play in certain places, but along that, straight below that T, right near the 150-foot 5-inch mark, that's where you should get that reading on the cable itself. And then right above that, you'll see 7.5 in green print. That's you're starting the cable 7.5 inches from the wall. If you start the cable a foot from the wall, you're going to have too much cable. If you start that cable 1 inch from the wall, you're going to run out of cable. You're going to have not enough. So you have to make note of these locations of the grip strips and how far they're placed from the wall. The closer to get together, the less square footage covered. The further apart they get, the more square footage covered. So that can really, really impact your job there. So now you should have a pretty good idea how to read these plans, what the yellow marks mean. This is where I should be getting with my ruler cable. I should be getting to this spot. I know now where I need to put my grip strips to make sure the plan works. That's very, very important. And then we also show you in the upper where that thermostat is, that blow up picture just to the right of it, we're showing you the thermostat goes in an open-ended loop. So you don't run that cable, you don't run that thermostat sensor over a heating cable, you run it into an open area, not over the cable. So that's very important. So that's kind of what's showing there. Check your dimensions, verify the dimensions are correct.
Absolutely. And Richard asks, what will be the thickness of the leveler to cover the wire, and what is the thickness of the grip strips? And we are kind of going to talk about that, I think, in a second here. But Scott, can you actually talk or speak to the thickness of the grip strips themselves? Do you know that off the top of your head?
They're about 5 millimeters high, which is right around just a little bit less than 1/4 inch. And you're going to be pouring 1/2 inch of self-leveling. So they will be covered. So 1/2 inch of self-leveling will cover everything. Now, if you have a floor, if you have a really old house and you're on the second floor and that floor is shaped like a bowl, you need to flatten it first. Because if you don't, and you have a floor that's shaped like a bowl and you attach the heating cable like this, and believe me, I've personally received this call before. They will say, why are
Yes.
the edges of my room warm and in the center it's so cold? Because it's a 200-year-old house and the floor is shaped like a bowl. And they didn't flatten the floor first. They put the wires right along that bowl, and now the center is this far from the floor, where it's this far from the floor on the edges. So always flatten your floor first. Wow, I can't believe I said that correctly.
Very impressive. So looking at the actual installation of this with the grip strips, you want to make sure that you're securing them to that subfloor really well. You can use galvanized nails or screws. If you're doing concrete, if you're going over a concrete slab, then probably you'll want to use concrete nails. And then you'll run that cable in the serpentine pattern back and forth. So again, Scott, like you had said, you can use hot glue to keep it in place. You can use masking tape every few feet to prevent it from floating up in that self-leveling cement.
The grip strips do not have self-adhesive. That's why we mentioned, if you can go back
Sorry.
right there in the first blurb, you can use nails, screws, or we do have double-sided tape that you can use to set it if you're going over thermal sheet for especially over a concrete floor. So yeah, that's a great question, Richard, but they do not come with it. But if you're going over concrete, then ask for it. We'll quote you the double-sided tape. You lay the tape out, you stick the grip strips onto it, and then you roll the cable back and forth. We have a video that shows how to do that, actually, one of me putting it in a basement. So very, very good question. And the reason why a half inch is coming up here, why do we do a half inch covering of self-leveling at least? That's because the LVT manufacturers say you can use a floor heating as long as it's embedded inside of self-leveling, and the heat source has to be about a half an inch away from the floor surface. And that's where your half inch of self-leveling is coming from, because that takes into account the backing that you have, that sort of stuff, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
And it helps you comply with the flatness requirements. See, LVT has rules. We have to follow the rules. It has to be a certain flatness, it has to be a certain distance from the heater, and it has to be kept to a certain temperature. So those are all the things that you're going to do and we'll help you with.
Yes, definitely. So when you're embedding the grip strips and the cable in the self-leveling cement, like I had said before, it kind of is creating a heated subfloor that can be reused if you ever want to change out the floor. So it's definitely a really nice benefit of, since it can often be a little bit of extra work to, put in the self-leveling cement and work with that, it's a really nice benefit to then have this heated subfloor pretty much indefinitely. So one of the main things is, again, you want to make sure that you're talking to your flooring manufacturer and that you're following all of your self-leveling concrete bags instructions, making sure it's at the proper moisture content, making sure that you are following acclimation requirements for the flooring and things like that.
And that you're priming the wood underneath it too. If you're using self-leveling, the bag of self-leveling will say must be used with this primer. And you need to make sure that you use that primer, because that's going to make your floor cure correctly. And you're also going to make sure there are no holes in this floor, because if you have a hole in this
Yes.
floor, that self-leveling is just going to whoop right through the hole into whatever's below it. So one thing I like about this picture right here too, it also shows the tape where we've used the tape there, and right by where your cursor is, there you can see where we've run the masking tape. It's nothing glamorous. It's just inexpensive masking tape that just holds it down long enough for the stuff to start turning firm. That's all it's there for. And it won't overheat. It won't cause any problems. It won't, there's no issues with that. So that's a great picture for that.
Yes, it is. And then, as we had talked about, most LVT is going to have a temperature limit, and this is going to maintain or comply with the manufacturer's warranty. And it's also just to make sure that that flooring doesn't run into any problems over time. So, what you can do is when you are setting up your thermostat, you can input your maximum temperature during the actual setup, and then it will actually just control it, making sure it doesn't go above that temperature, that exact degree, and it'll be utilizing that floor sensor as you had talked about earlier, Scott. When you put that in by the thermostat, that way it will be able to control the exact temperature of the floor. And can you kind of tell us, Scott, a little bit about setback restrictions and what that means with LVT?
A setback restriction is what most programmable thermostats are used for to achieve inexpensive electric bills, which mean it turns the system up to 82 or 84 when you're at home. And you can set the temperature down to 68 or 65 or whatever you want to for tile, to save you money when you're not there. So at night, when you're not walking on the floor, overnight, or during the day when you're at work. So those are setbacks. You're going from 84 down to 70. That's a setback. Well, some LVT says you can only go 2 or 3 degrees difference per day. So you could go to 84 to 82. Well, is it really worth bothering to do that? Because you're really not going to save 2 degrees. It's not really going to save you a bunch of money. So the LVT company will say when maximum setback is 2 degrees. If you have a maximum setback of 2 degrees, what you're in essence is you're ramping up the temperature at the beginning of the season. You're keeping it at the same temperature the entire winter, and then ramping it down a couple degrees per day when you're done at the end of the heating season. So that's what a setback temperature is. You have to ask if it's allowed or not.
Absolutely. And then, Scott, can you kind of speak to when you're shopping for an LVT, what are you looking for in terms of the backing and the R value of the actual tile or plank itself?
Well, I'm only going to answer this because Chris asked it in advance. Otherwise, I wouldn't answer your question. But since Chris asked, I will go ahead and answer. And Chris wants to know about cork backing or foam backing approval. And that means in terms of science, which we'll keep to a very basic minimum here, is R value. You don't want anything with an R value of over 1 over this system. So if you have an LVT plank that has an R value of 1 and you have an LVT plank which has a value of 1.25, you want the one with an R value of 1, whether it has backing or not. So if your plank has backing and the assembly still has an R value of 1 or less, then use it. So there really is no prohibition against foam backing or cork backing. Is what's the R value of the assembly? If it's 1 or less, we don't care, because 1 or less means the temperature is going to go up to where your feet are and not run into an insulator like foam or cork if it's too thick. So very, very good question. And I'm sure glad Chris asked that, because otherwise I would have just ignored your question.
That's fair. I mean, why
I'm a
would you
team
ever want to
player.
talk to me, right? All right. Do we have any other questions that were sent in ahead of
Oh,
time?
let's see. No,
Richard just asked, is there a difference in transfer heat between glue down versus click flooring?
glue down is going to, what's your enemy when it comes to floor heating is air pockets in between. If you can bond that flooring to the heated surface, it's going to allow the heat to go through much better. So if you had something floating around with an air space in certain spots, as opposed to gluing it down and bonding it to the subfloor, bonding it to the subfloor is always going to let the heat come through better than something would have an air gap in between it. So that's pretty important to know. So that's a great question.
Absolutely. All right. So next month, we'll be sharing our list of top webinars from the year. So feel free to check those out. Watch any ones that you missed out on over the last year. We will be taking the month off from recording a new webinar so that we can get ready for the holidays. Let
Shop,
us
shop,
know.
shop. Yeah, we need to go shopping.
Yes. And wrapping, that's kind of more my concern.
Mhm.
So let us know which topics you'd like to see in 2025. We'd love to chat with you about what you want to hear about. We want to do topics that you're interested in. So definitely let us know if there's anything you'd like to see next year. We do also offer additional training with often Scott or myself at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays right here on Zoom. So feel free to pop in and check that out. Our promotion for November is that we are offering 20% off of our TempZone Ruler cables, which we talked about at length today. So please be sure to check that out. You can learn more about that and all of our ongoing promotions. And once this is over, we will send you an email asking for your feedback on the webinar. We would love to hear any comments, any suggestions. I know Scott and I will always take compliments, especially about how funny and cool we are. So feel free to send in anything. Again, let us know if there's any topics you'd like to see in the future. And reach out if we could be of any assistance. If you'd like to get a smart plan going, if you have questions on products or installation, anything like that, we would love to chat with you about your project. So feel free to reach out. And I think that that is all we have today, Scott. That is all I'm seeing. So if you are good, then we will be logging off for now. As always, thank you everyone for joining us. Stay warm and be
And
radiant.
be radiant. See you later.